Well, you've said there's nothing else to talk about, but I'll call you out and I'll call your bluff just there, Jesse, because we have something else to talk about. Indeed, we have the clumps to talk about now. Let's move on to the clumps. The clumps. Last week, if you didn't watch or didn't listen, we went through part one of the clumps 9 teams from the bottom to around about the middle. This week, we kind of get the rest of the middle all the way to the top. Episode 1 was on YouTube. As part of I cut it out. I cut a little bit out and I chucked it on YouTube. And guess what,
Good
Jesse?
job.
I'm going to do it again for this one. In fact, if you're watching this on YouTube, welcome. Hello. Now.
Hello.
So we got to, where did we get to last week? I believe it was the St Kilda or Western Bulldogs, right?
We were well past that. We got as far as 9th at that point in time. We didn't talk about Gold Coast and GWS. Okay. Before we go on beyond that, do you have any clump realignments from your 2 misery clumps?
I'd say Brisbane has to be put back into the main clump a little bit now that they're in contention basically with the rest of them. Where are they at? Yeah,
they are 13th. I'm gonna make my 8th circle of hell 5 teams. Adelaide and St Kilda have been dragged down.
Fair enough. Yep.
I'm going to make a new clump called the Bottle Jobs, which I'll come to in a second. Okay. And then I will continue on from there.
I would also bump Hawthorn a few steps up in my thing as well, just because I like what they're doing. But I believe we left it last week at the Gold Coast Suns. Now, did you want to start with them, Jesse? I'm going to let you kind of take the wheel for the clumps this week. Whereabouts are you going first?
I am going to talk about Fremantle because we didn't talk about them last week, and I'm going to put them into the Bottle Jobs. What a lovely little clump we have here.
Okay.
So the Bottle Jobs are clubs that have promised the world and delivered an Atlas this season. So Fremantle, they can go into this clump because they were terrible on Saturday, and I am reticent to put them anywhere else but in the Bottle Job clump after that. Melbourne have been elected Bottle Job presidents, so they will have a little ticker tape parade in their honour because they have been terrible this year, and Brisbane are going in there as well because they've also been terrible this year.
Okay.
Let's talk Fremantle though.
Okay.
Because we were in hot favourite communication on Saturday, Liam, watching a slow car crash of a game, and it was that. And I posed a question.
Was the car crash or a slow beating with a blunt object?
Somehow both.
Yeah, it was really. Yeah.
So I said to you after this game, one finals appearance in 5 years, noting Fremantle still in the 8. One finals appearance in 5 years. Is that valid for a senior coach to have that on their record? And should that then put serious pressure on their position going to 2025? And you said yes, you agree with me here. Because what we saw on Saturday with Fremantle was a reverting to the norm. And that norm is ultimately terrified of any spotlight, attention, praise, or interest in this club. It happened in 2021 towards the back end of the season when Fremantle were charging towards the finals after a slow start and were smacked by Geelong and smacked by St Kilda in the last round of the season. It was patchy in 22. There was a bit of a case of riding the lightning in 22. The wins were coming. It was mostly good. There were a couple of weird losses, but for the most part, things were fine. And then in 23, people got really excited going into that season, thinking, this is it, semi-final, young list, exciting. They've lost a piece or two, but they've gotten some pieces as well. Luke Jackson's in the team, hooray. And it was diabolical. This season, it was a bit of a don't know with Fremantle. They started well. They got wins against teams like Brisbane, Adelaide, which at the time was like, oh, hello. This is exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's been up and down since then. They've thrown away games they should have won against Port and Carlton. Belted by the Eagles in a derby that I don't think many people, with respect to West Coast, thought the West Coast would win at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Flogged the likes of Melbourne, beat the Western Bulldogs in WA, drew with Collingwood. But then there's just these games. And I don't think Fremantle can be taken seriously as a threat while these games are still in their copybook.
It's pretty simple, right? no consistency, no flag. No consistency, no finals. We remain to be one of the most confusing teams in the competition. We really are one of the most confusing teams. And this has been this way for years through various coaches. I'm not too sure what it is about the Freo. This is even after we got rid of the anchor from the jersey, which is apparently weighing us down. It's always been this way. It's very funny, Jesse. It's great. You're so grumpy. All right. But J-Lo, when he gets it right, he looks like a genius. When he gets it wrong, he looks like an absolute fool. And there was a time in that game on the weekend where he looked confused. And I remember the message you got that you sent me was like, "Stop looking confused, Justin. You're the coach. Do something." And I thought that was very apropos. There you go. He laughs at his own stuff, doesn't he? Crocky Moses. Here he goes.
He's good. He's good.
He's good. He's good.
He's a likable podcaster.
But getting smashed by 94 points, and then I did say to you, when was the last time we win off a bye? But to come out and dish up that, which we'll talk about later.
Hang on.
What?
Hang on.
What?
And I've seen this from sections of the fan base too. Using the bye as an excuse is utter crap. And I will not for a second entertain it as a reason why a football club cannot win a game. No. That's a joke. Every club has a bye.
Not an excuse. Not an excuse. I'm just, it was merely a question. When was the last time?
If it's that much of a problem, they can all go play for Peel. Like, I don't care. Send them to Mandurah for the week.
Yeah.
And Sarong can get 85 touches against a decrepit Subiaco midfield. Like, that's fine. But don't use that as an excuse because it's not. And I've legitimately seen people doing it and I don't understand it. Because
if he goes and plays for Peel, do I still get
disadvantage.
If he goes and plays for Peel, do I still get my fantasy points? Because that'd be good. 85 touches would be great.
That'd be very good. I'll give you 33% of the fantasy points.
I'll take it. Well,
that's probably about 8,000.
we won't talk about these guys for too long because we know where they're at, and that is we don't know where they're at. I agree with you in the sense that it's kind of finals or bust for J-Lo. That said, I don't think it will be. I think they'll stick with him for that next year, regardless of how. Regardless of how this year finishes. But look, I think most Freo fans are at that stage now where we would love a finals, just any finals. Finish 8th, Freo, fine. And the way they're going this season, who knows what they'll do? They might make it to miraculously to the grand final and then lose by 150 in the grand final. That's Freo. You just don't know. You just don't know. Anyway,
to somehow Richmond, despite not being.
Yeah, that's right. But I still have Freo in my battle for the 8 mega clump. Obviously, they currently sit 8th. Hopefully all that soul searching they'll be doing, they actually, do. Because we cannot have that again. We will get it again, but we just can't have it. Who is next? Jesse.
I would like to talk about my top 8 chasing clump. Now, I don't have boring names for my clumps like you do. So I'm calling mine the aspirational class. So my aspirational class, they're battlers, but they're having a go. So in my aspirational class, I want to talk about Gold Coast. Although I think Gold Coast may have agoraphobia. So unless we're going to move the grand final and all subsequent finals to the People First Stadium, that could be an issue. They are housebound and they are terrified of exiting those garish orange seats. However, when they are at home, they're very good. It is cozy. It is cozy. It's very good. It's very fun for Gold Coast when they're at home. And they've got pieces now that can keep them in the hunt for the top 8 if they can get it right. We saw how sorely they missed Tuke Miller's influence when he was tagged out of the game against St Kilda. He is clearly vital to their structure. Mac Andrew has been, potentially one of the best defenders this season at any club. He's been excellent. Mm-hmm. They're getting a good distribution of goal scorers, even outside of Ben King. They have players hitting the scoreboard. David Swallow's been a calming influence offensively when he's been coming on a lot as a medical sub too, which I quite like, using a veteran as the medical sub. I think I understand why people go for speedsters, but I like that calming mid-game presence on the field, especially when they can be productive still like Swallow can.
To talk about a different team really quickly, that's what Hawthorn's been doing the last 5-6 weeks, bringing Bruce off the bench. I think it's been great, especially that game against Port where they kind of lost it at the end. I think after that, they brought on Bruce afterwards to settle the troops down. Great call, great shout. I agree with that.
So Gold Coast for me, there is a tale of two cities, as in Gold Coast versus everywhere else. Um, they can do it. They can make the 8. They just need to find wins away from home. Fortunately for them, they have Fremantle next week. So congratulations, Gold Coast. Your streak away from home is broken. Anything you want to add on the Suns?
Yeah, I do. It's pretty much the same what you've just said. Like formidable at home, duds away, and I do hope that they keep that duds away mantra going this week. Obviously, but if they work out their away woes, then they could go pretty far this year. But that's a big if. So I actually have them just below Freo because even though in my clump hat, my clumparoos, because at the end of the day, Freo can win away from home. They can. They can also lose badly, but they can win away from home. And yeah, I think Freo are just a tick ahead of Gold Coast Suns still, regardless of our very, very passionate feelings about the club. I do think that the Gold Coast Suns are just a smidge behind the Dockers in that battle for the 8, but that will all change depending on the result of this coming weekend. I am sure. Who is next?
Let's talk GWS, because they got a valuable restart to their season on Sunday against Port Adelaide, one they desperately needed.
Desperately.
I wasn't particularly riveted by GWS coming in to this season. I thought they were too reliant on potentially Jesse Hogan for goals. I thought there was questions about guys like Whitfield having another productive year, getting on a bit. I was a bit unsure about where exactly the improvement was going to come for them. It started brilliantly. It turned into a nightmare, and now we're in this weird gunfire halted moment where everyone's kind of looking around, wondering what happens now. That's the sense that I get from GWS, because when they're on, they're on.
Yeah.
Sunday should never ever be seen again anywhere. That tape should be burnt at AFL House, and I should ever have to watch a game of football for any reason. But they showed they can win ugly, contrasted to their orange tsunami start of the season. So they're showing a bit of adaptability. That's valuable this year because there's a lot of, I think, false bravado with a couple of these sides, and a couple of these sides are now starting to get found out, rather alarmingly. So I'm leaning towards GWS being a top 8 side as of right now. I mean, they are 5th, but they're also a game off being 12th.
Yeah, fifth this year doesn't mean dickety squat because that's so
Not
close.
At all.
From literally from second down to 12th, basically. Even 13th if you count Brisbane in there as well. There's only a couple of games in between them. So, but yeah, they're a funny one, Giants, because obviously tipped to be grand finalists, maybe even premiers at the start of the year. And they started the year off looking exactly like that's how they're going to be. And then, I don't know what's happened this last month and a bit, but they've been very not GWS-like, not Giants-like. I'm not too sure what it was. I'm not too sure if there was one game in particular where they got found out and they just lost all their confidence, or if every other team has just worked out how to battle the tsunami. Who knows? But we'll talk about the Giants Port game later on. But it wasn't pretty. But at least they looked like they were trying to play a little bit of that run and gun footy that had brought them to the dance in the first few rounds. Kingsley, I don't know. Obviously, he's fine. He's only in his third year, so second full season. So he can learn a lot from these struggles, these ups and these downs, and obviously bring that into his coaching resume. But yeah, I think I had Giants in the exact same position as well. So we're on the line there, Jesse. Now, I made a slight adjustment to my next team, and interested to see if you have kind of the same one in the same area. But I'll take this one. Right after the Giants, I actually have Port Adelaide. And because it's a funny one. It's kind of actually very similar to the Giants, to be honest with you, in a lot of ways. Like young, exciting team, really good list, love to run and gun. When they get it right, it's really good. When they get it wrong, it's not very good at all. I think the biggest thing for Port this year is it's all about Ken. GWS had a very funny banner saying "You are Kenuff." That was very funny.
Do you understand
but I
that
think
reference, Liam?
I do, man. I have seen Barbie. I watch movies. Come on now. I'm a
I'm
cultured
proud of
man. Thank you, man. Thank
you.
you.
You're doing great.
But I really wish I knew the song because I would have bursted out just then. I would have, and you know I would have as well, but I don't know it,
I
unfortunately.
know it, but I'm not. I'm
Or
not gonna. We're on YouTube
go
right
on,
now, so I'm
Jesse.
not. No.
Get a bar in. Go
No.
on.
The
But no, I
similarities
think
between me and Ryan Gosling begin and end at the fact we're both male.
yeah, it's true. Oh, yeah. No, I was going to try and make a joke, but that's pretty much it. Now, I actually don't know what there is to say out for Port Adelaide because they are very similar to Giants. Ken Hinkley, no prelim, no job next year is basically how I've always called it. I think most people have this year. He's been there for 11 years. It's been a minute and hasn't really been that success. So it might be a case of even if he's getting the team towards the top of the table, maybe it's just not enough.
I wonder if there's going to be 2 vacancies in Adelaide come the end of the season then, because
Yeah,
I
potentially.
wouldn't be. I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be putting down a new mortgage down if I was Matthew Nicks right now in South Australia. I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be buying a forever home in Adelaide off what we've seen in the last 6-8 weeks. So
Yeah.
that's a problem. So that'd be quite interesting. And wouldn't it be something if Mr. Ken could we do like a what was
Coach
that like
draft.
world's strictest parent style swap and just send Ken to Adelaide and Nixie to the Crows? So Nixie to Port. I think that'd be quite entertaining.
Why not? Why not? I reckon.
I actually don't know which fan base would be more cross.
I reckon Ports would be.
They do seem a shade more passionate.
Yeah, they do. They do. I think it's akin to kind of the Eagles and West Coast, right? Adelaide with the stalwarts, and then Port are the new kids on the block.
Eagles and West Coast.
Yeah, I did.
That's very meta.
Yeah, we'll move on. Doesn't matter. But yeah. Any other thoughts on Port for you?
They need to fix their scoring issues, and having Charlie languish in the VFL and then get suspended for 3 weeks probably doesn't help their case. Not sold on Marshall, not sold on Georgiades. There's wholesale questions about where Port are going to be getting 13, 14 goals a game from, with Dixon now out of the picture, and Georgiades and Marshall just not really the guy, I guess, for lack of a better term. No Finlayson at the moment either. He's in and out of the team. So big question marks about offensively for Port Adelaide. But to be honest, there's a few clubs in that top 8 bracket you could make the same case for.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Asava kicked a goal on the weekend. That's always fun to see. It's always nice when the defenders get up there and kick a goal. It's fantastic. All right, well, let's move on. Who's next on your list? Have you changed clumps yet? Because my battle for the 8 mega clump is basically every other team bar 2.
Yeah, honestly, so is mine. Because I'm going to talk about Essendon next because I feel like they're potentially slightly more vulnerable than Geelong, despite being ahead of them on the ladder at the moment. And Essendon, for me, are a weird one because they're actually, funnily enough, and I know reticent to quote bookmaker odds because bookmaker odds in futures markets are a reflection of where the money is, not necessarily who the chance of winning is going to be. But Essendon are actually have the longest odds inside the top 8 at $21, sharing that with Port and Fremantle. And yet they're in the top 4. So if there was to be COVID-2 and the season was to stop right now and we had to go straight to finals, Essendon would have a double chance. So they are in an inherently good position right now. That being said, what we've seen from the result against Gold Coast and against Carlton in their last 2 games has been the mask and the ability to completely control games slowly start to slip. And that can be a hard trend to unsettle and get back on your feet. If you're potentially overachieving based on your list, which I don't think many Essendon fans would disagree that they have so far this season, but also the fact then, while they were often gone and winning games and getting to that top 2 position, other clubs around them were faltering, but there was also that resurgence from outside the 8 pushing up and putting pressure on. That's the likes of Carlton and Collingwood, who have now gone past them. GWS starting to get things maybe better. I'll even throw in Fremantle and Western Bulldogs here on the body of the last month. That causes problems for Essendon because they've only got now 11 games to go, and it's a hard back half of the season for Essendon. Much like Fremantle, they got a lot of winnable games early and they won them. Now they start to face this issue of, well, we're going to have to be as good as the top four if we want to be top four. While Essendon, I think, are a good enough side to make finals this season, I even though they're only 6 points off ninth, well, 6 points off 12th for that matter, even though they're in that perilous position points-wise, I still think they're a good side. They play good football, but they are having issues now. Langford's career year is slowing, and that is now, much like Port Adelaide, a gigantic problem for them scoring-wise, because Peter Wright, I don't think, has had a very good season, and potentially that spotlight on him having a poor year hasn't shone yet because A, Essendon have been top four most of this year, and B, Langford's had a career year to pick up some of the slack. If these two things no longer exist, that pressure will build. This is a starved fan base of success. They are not going to want to see this opportunity slip away. If it continues to trend downwards like it has in the last two games, that's a problem. They've got West Coast this week. That could be a far bigger game than we thought it was going to be a fortnight ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They don't play West Coast very well either for some reason. It's like their bogey team. Sometimes they get the job done, but it's like only just. But yeah, no, I think I had Essendon in the exact same spot. I think, a game and a half off 11th spot goes to show how close this season is and how vulnerable that is, And, you listen to the commentary, and the commentary is always wishy-washy because they change from week to week. They're very, very vapid. And, they were talking about how, Essendon second, amazing. They are dangerously in peril of dropping directly out, and that fan base missing out on that final that they want to see so badly. And you're right, they've got a pretty tough second half. So they definitely need to get the job done against the Eagles, and they should. But from there, it's going to be look for all these teams though. To be honest with you, anyone who's in this little A clump, anyone needs to basically win everything. Which is why, as Freo fans, last weekend was even more frustrating because we know how important those games are. But I think Essendon, Brad Scott, how we feeling about him? How's he going? I don't think there's any issues for him at the moment, is there? He's done pretty well.
I think he's doing pretty well. I think I always felt for Brad Scott with the way it ended at North because I didn't necessarily think that was a fair reflection on his ability as a senior coach. I think he's also unlucky in being not even the best Scott at coaching because Chris is very good.
He's very good.
However, Brad is an excellent coach. He's a coach that I think realistically most clubs would be richer for having. And he's earned his opportunity at a club like Essendon, I feel. And, I don't see the need to start pushing him out just yet. I think there's more than enough to be positive about. And Essendon's list is still pretty young. They've got enough young talent. Nick Martin's just hitting his straps now at his prime. I think they'll be all right. I think Essendon will be all right. Maybe not this year for them in terms of top four deep into a finals campaign, but I think they'll be all right over the next couple of years.
I think they'll be happy with the one final win, just to kind of get that donkey off the back. Yeah. Or the monkey. I've done that again, haven't I? I've done that a lot.
Eeyore.
The monkey off the back. Eeyore. Thanks for noticing. But we'll move on. Who is next in your club?
You do remind me of him, actually.
Thank you.
You really do.
Is that because of the big jacket? I am not depressed like Eeyore. Come on now. You're the Eeyore out of any of us. I'm more of the Winnie the Pooh.
My back's sore. Thanks for asking.
Shut up. Hey, it's my foot at the moment, I'll have you know. All right, moving on. I think the next one in my list, look, I'm not too sure if it's the same as yours, but we seem to be on track a lot this little round. I could interchange this one with the next one, but I'm actually going to go Collingwood next.
I disagree with you.
Well, that's the two that I could have interchanged.
Okay.
So those two are kind of even keel. They're the next two in my list. But we'll talk about Collingwood first, because it doesn't really matter. But the slow start really put them at a weird spot for this season. Obviously, they've now worked their way back up to the top four, as most people thought they would. But it hasn't been like overly convincing. Like they got the win this last weekend, but that wasn't overly convincing. If you're going 54 points down against the bottom team on the ladder, sure, the fight back was good, but everyone knows that North, unfortunately, died pretty quickly in the second half. They've got some wins. They've been a little bit depleted with injuries. I understand that, but most teams have. I think if they start getting some of those key players back, they'll obviously be very nice. If they get them back at the right time for the rest of the year, they'll be looking pretty nice. But yeah, at the moment, still not entirely convinced they'll make. Well, they probably can make top 4. I don't know. I don't know if I'm convinced or not. What am I convincing myself of, Jesse? Tell me.
Collingwood are like that kid who has a school year, does nothing in semester 1, probably passes exams but isn't really, because he knows the big one is at the end of semester 2, and that's the one he's
Sure.
focused on. And then
Okay,
all
okay.
throughout term 3 starts to build something and build and build and build. And term 4, is just off and gone. And he's saving himself for when it matters.
Yeah.
He is. He's a clever boy. And Craig McRae is a clever boy. And
He
this
is.
Collingwood team are clever boys. They're a clever football side, and they know how to win games. It was bizarre. It was unconventional and potentially rather fortunate on Sunday. But ultimately, they're the ones with the 4 points. Look at the form table. They've won 3, drawn 1, lost 1 in their last 5. They were really probably should have had 4 or 5. They dropped an unlosable lead against Fremantle and then had to settle for a draw. They're playing good footy. I'm happy with them now. Yes, they were dreadful at the start of the season, but they've only really lost 1 game since then. Since losing their first 2, they've lost 1 game since. They've had a couple of draws in there against 2 sides that are currently in the top 8 as well. So it's not like they're really dropping points aggressively. They're dropping points to teams in their general vicinity, which I think is fine. So looking at that, I mean, to me, they're the second biggest challenge to Sydney right now for me, and potentially the side that Sydney would least want to face in a grand final.
Yeah. Fair shout. I think obviously we'll talk about Carlton in a second, but they're probably the understudies to Sydney at the moment in a weird way. But that said, Collingwood have. We will in a second. I'm just gonna make a little point.
I thought you were.
Jesus.
Coming over the mark. You didn't tell me to stand.
I didn't tell you to stand. The whistle did go, but you know what? Benefit of the doubt. I played on. You just didn't see it. Okay, we'll go to Geelong then. We'll go to Geelong and we'll come back to Carlton in a second. But obviously Craig McRae ain't going nowhere. Geelong. 7-7-7 wins all day at the start of the season. Everyone was like, whoa, including us going, we had these guys on a slide. What's happening? What's going on? And then all of a sudden they started losing and losing and losing. It was like, okay, wait a second. What's the goss here? It's been a weird season, man. But like,
yeah,
they were looking like they were going to be the surprise packet of the year, and then not too sure exactly what's happened. I mean, they've had again. I don't like to blame things on injuries because, like I said, every team's got them. Some teams are pretty good at patching up the holes. Other teams aren't. Maybe Geelong just is one of those teams who have been a depth team for a very long time. Maybe they just haven't had those that crack spackle for the injuries this year, unfortunately. Lots of young kids coming through. Sometimes I play and I'm like, who's this kid playing for Geelong? I've never seen him before in my life, which is fine. You get those. It's always fun. But look, it's Geelong, right? You never write Geelong off. They got Chris Scott as the coach. No matter which team is playing, they're always a chance. And whenever you're doing the tipping, they could, even when they were 7-0, right? Nope, 7-0. That's not what they were. They were 7-0. The last 5 weeks when they've been 5-1. Not good form. You still kind of go, actually. Probably could. So that's why I've got them at where they are. You had them one below. You had Geelong and Collingwood switched. Your thoughts on Geelong?
Yeah, I'm just concerned about 1 win the last 6. That's my big sticking point for them. Is that's not good form. That's bottom. That's 8th circle of hell form, and yet they're still in 6th position. So good for them. That's fine. They have talent, but I need to start seeing them get wins on the board. They have a critical game this weekend that may end up just deciding their fate against the team we're about to start talking about now, Liam, and that is, of course, Carlton.
Can I just say, Jesse, when was the last time we had a Friday night game? We were all like, there we go. That looks like a Friday night game. It's a minute.
Probably Fremantle Collingwood.
Yeah, probably actually. Yeah. But Carlton Geelong will be a great one. Great one this Friday. Absolument. Carlton, outside of a few hiccups, display that they have every tool to take it on every week. And
Yeah,
it'll be great forward line, great back line, great mids. Like everything seems to be working. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the Blues? The Navy Blues.
The Navy Blues have just slowly but surely refined their best 22. And what that means is not necessarily increase output from your top guys. It means that everyone has just slowly started to raise their standards. Guys like guys like Chincotta, Lewis Young, these type of players now all of a sudden putting in more of a shift and having more of an impact in games. And that brings everyone up. And if you can have that universal improvement across your 22, that's the best scenario for an administration because you don't need to bring in players because your improvement's coming from within. That seems to be what's happening with Carlton right now. And I've got to say, they have a fun side to watch. They can tear teams apart. They can defend doggedly. They can get into these scrappy, close games and still come out on top. We've seen that against teams like Melbourne they can scrap with. Yeah, they can play free-flowing, fast, fun football as well. They have more than one dimension to their game. That's because they have one of the best, I think, modern-day thinkers as a player in Michael Voss in their box, who has, for a guy that struggled at Brisbane during a disappointing era for that football club, he's really showing his prowess as a senior coach. And he's out-coaching guys with significantly more experience in the box than him. He's safe as houses. Pretty confident Carlton are going to be in the top 4 come the end of the season. I certainly think they'll be in the top 8. And while there is a clear beacon at the top, having a bit of an Amati party in the lighthouse, I just get the sense that Carlton are a team that can upset that apple cart because they're willing to take it to you. And it's those sides, the sides with dare in season 2024, that I think can cause an upset in that last day in September.
Yeah, 100%. It's crazy to think that not a year ago, everyone was calling for his head. He's turned it around since then. He's definitely worked out how to coach that team, and he's doing it very, very well. No, you said it all against for Carlton. Nothing more to say, really. Doing very well. The Navy Blues. I wouldn't mind seeing them up. If it's not us, I actually wouldn't mind seeing Carlton doing well. My uncle listens to this. He'll hate that I've said that, but that's okay. Let's move on to the top of the table. The cream of the crop. Oh, yeah. The cream always rises to the top. Oh, yeah. The Sydney Swans. We had them doing well this year, but goodness me, you love that reference. You'd love it. What are you talking about? Shaking your head at me. Cracking Moses. We didn't. We expect them to be
that was an iron shake.
Shut up. That was bad. I should be shaking my head at you. Unbelievable. Look, we had them doing well this year, but I don't think we saw them as being like the standout this year. I mean, they're currently 3 games clear at top of the table. When was the last time any team was 3 games clear?
Well, they're not just standing out. They are a historically relevant side when it comes to first half of the season. 12-1 does not come around all that often. It's been a phenomenal campaign, and the side they lost to was so weird. They lost to Richmond, and I don't know how.
That was back in round 2?
Round 3, I think.
2? Yeah,
it was early. It was early doors.
Yeah. Let's not. They were like, let's not happen. Let's not let that happen again. And they were like, yes, you've got a boss. Let's not let that happen again. And here they are. They haven't let it happen again. It's hard to say too much about Sydney because they've just been so professional, and even when their backs are against the wall, as they have been for the last couple of weeks, actually, like Adelaide were taking it to them for 3 quarters, and then Sydney were like, that's cute. Geelong the week before, or whenever the bye was, the last game before that, Geelong put 6 on them at the start as well. And then they were like, cute. Sprang five of them in 5 minutes, back in the game, win convincingly. It seems like no matter what position they're in this year, Sydney, be that way ahead, be it behind, they just know how to get it done. And they continue to get it done. You look at the list and you're like, what? I mean, I've got a mate who's a Sydney. Rob from Nostalgia Bro, my other podcast. He's a massive Swan supporter, and he's very excited because all the big pieces have signed as well. Bar one, by that cheeky Chad.
I'm prepared to sacrifice any of Corey Wagner's vital organs to Sydney as an offering if we can get Chad Warner in this club. Like, I
Wagner
will
for
just
Warner?
about
Yeah.
no, just purely his kidney.
No, I know.
Like, put him on the operating table. If that's what Sydney want, then we will give that to them.
Yeah.
We need Chad Warner. Sydney need Chad Warner too.
Yeah.
But we need him as well.
The City need Chad Warner, but they'll be fine without him. They'll be
You know what?
fine. Don't even worry about it. Yeah.
If we've still got Laura from the first half of this podcast, shared custody. Why not? It's not worse than any of your other ideas this season. Let's have shared custody of players. They can spend a week in Melbourne with all the fashion and all the coffee and all the fun, and they can spend a week here in Perth with us winning games.
Sydney can have him during the week. Sydney can have him during the week. We'll take him on weekends. Done. Sounds good to me.
Well, they are extending Thursday night football, so it actually may not be as helpful as we first thought.
Damn it. All right, let's talk about Sydney though. Jesse, what's to say about Sydney and John Longmire's coaching prowess?
Well, John Longmire's been one of the best coaches in the competition this side of 2010, and potentially never actually credited for that. He's a brilliant coach. He's able to regenerate the list. He's got the support staff around him. But there's no doubt to me that Dean Cox could be a senior coach of just about any team in the league if he so desired. But Cox has stayed loyal to Horse.
Yeah, he's been an assistant for a while, right? He's been there for
for years, and that speaks to the quality of what Sydney have. You don't keep talented pieces in understudy type roles unless they actively want to be there and want to be a part of that system. Sydney they're very good right now. Keep in mind they were in the grand final in 2022, so they've not been this out of the wilderness side. They've been in that top four picture for the better part of 15 years now. I mean, going back to 2012 when they, of course, won the premiership, they were in and around it during Hawthorn's three-peat. They were in and around it again at the start of Richmond's. They've had a mini trough in between, but look what came out of that mini trough. Goulden, Warner, these players they've regenerated through. It's just been phenomenal. McDonald in there as well. They've just got it right. They're a well-organised side. They've got advantage of a big market, which helps, but they are making the most of that advantage, which is all you can ask for. So, well done, Sydney. They're clearly the team to beat. They're in a clump of their own. That is part 2, Liam, of our clumps. Thank you to our YouTube friends for tuning in once again on that part.
Yep, that's right. Like, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. We'll move on.